Are you wondering why your kid trusts their manipulative parent? Young children trust almost everyone. And I know that sounds sweet, but in your situation, it's actually the most vulnerable thing about them because a 4 or 5 or 6-year-old cannot tell the difference between an adult who is safe and an adult who is using them. They're built to trust the grown-ups who raise them completely without question. So when one of those grown-ups is emotionally unsafe, your child doesn't have an inner alarm that goes off. They just absorb it as normal. And the question that keeps so many parents up at night is this: how do I teach my child to recognize that something isn't right without making them afraid of the world and without turning them against their own parent? By the end of this video, you're going to have an understanding of why your child doesn't have that inner alarm yet, what it actually takes to build one, and how a child can learn to recognize a tricky person without becoming fearful or hard. This is some of the most important work you will ever do for your child because it's the kind of protection that stays with them long after they walk out of your home. I'm Dr. Naaila. I have a doctorate in child development, and I'm also a bonus mom who has lived inside one of these dynamics. So I've sat with this question: how do you give your child an inner compass, especially when you weren't handed one yourself? And if you're watching this and thinking, this is exactly what I'm afraid of, that my child trusts the wrong person, and I don't know how to protect them without scaring them, then I want you to book a strategy session with me. This isn't therapy, it's strategy. We'll get clear on what your child actually needs and what's getting in the way of giving it to them. The link to book is in the description. Okay, let's start with why this happens in the first place. Here's something I really want you to understand because it changes how you see your child's behavior. When your young child trusts an unsafe parent completely, that's not naivete, and it's not a flaw. It's biology. A small child is wired to attach to and trust the people who care for them. Because for almost all of human history, that trust was survival. The parent is the child's entire world. So a young child literally cannot hold the idea that a parent's love might be conditional or that it could be used as a tool to control them. That thought isn't available to them yet. It's too big, it's too frightening, and their development simply hasn't gotten there. Which means your child doesn't experience an emotionally unsafe parent as unsafe. They experience it as how love works. A child in a harmful dynamic usually doesn't think anything is wrong because they have nothing to compare it to. And I know exactly where your mind goes next because it's where almost every loving parent's mind goes. If my child can't see it, then I'll help them see it. I'll explain what their other parent is really doing. I understand that urge completely. But this is the one move that I want to gently steer you away from. And the most important reason has nothing to do with strategy. It's about your child's heart. When you sit a child down and tell them that the parent that they love is manipulating them, you are not giving them clarity. You're giving them pain. You're asking your child to carry something far too heavy, and you're putting them right in the middle, where loving one parent starts to feel like betraying the other. However true your words are, that is what your child actually receives, not the truth about the other parent, just the ache of being caught between two people they love most. And there's a second reason underneath that one. Even if you want to, a child's mind isn't built to receive it yet. The idea that a parent's love could be used against them is too big and too frightening for a small child to hold. So it doesn't land as understanding. It just lands as more confusion, sitting on top of the pain. I'll name one practical thing too, and then I want to move past it because it's the smallest of the reasons and not the real one. The courts tend to see a parent explaining to a child that the other parent is bad as exactly the kind of thing that they're watching for, and it can quietly work against you. But please don't hear that as the reason to hold back. The reason to hold back is your child. The court piece is just one more sign that this was never the path. So, this isn't really about whether your child is old enough to understand. Telling them was never going to protect them in the first place. And here's the relief hiding inside that. The thing that actually does protect your child never asks you to say a single word about their other parent. So, if explaining isn't the answer, what is? Here's where it starts, and it's not what most people expect, because it isn't about teaching your child to be suspicious of the other parent. It's about protecting what your child concludes about themselves. Think about what happens inside a child who doesn't have a compass yet. When an adult does something tricky, the child doesn't think, that adult is doing a tricky thing. A child turns inward. They think, I must have done something wrong. I must be bad. My feelings must be the problem. And that conclusion, repeated over years, is the real injury. It's not just that the child gets manipulated, it's that they decide that there's something wrong with them. So the very first thing we give a child is a different lens. It's the idea that when someone does a tricky thing, it usually comes from an unhappy heart inside that person. And it's about them, not about you. That one idea is what lets a child start to recognize tricky behavior without it crushing their sense of who they are and without making them hard or afraid of everyone they meet. They get to keep their softness and still have eyes that see clearly. And children in these situations do start to notice things, even very young ones, long before they have words for it. A child might notice that one parent says unkind things about their other home, or that the parent doesn't pass along news, like the things happening at school, or that when a child has a feeling, it doesn't seem to matter very much, or that it somehow becomes a child's job to take care of that parent when they're sad or hurt, or that talking about their other parent makes this one angry, or that they have to hold their body in a certain way, sit still, and stay quiet, even when their little body is bursting to move. Children quietly file all of this away, and when we give them the lens that these tricky things come from an unhappy heart and were never a child's fault, those quiet observations stop turning into something is wrong with me and start turning into something isn't right here and it isn't mine to fix. And if you're sitting there realizing that your child has been collecting these moments and quietly blaming themselves for them, that is exactly the kind of work we work through in a strategy session. We get clear on what your child has internalized and how to begin gently turning it around. The link is in the description. And stay with me, because now I want to show you where this compass actually lives, and it's probably not where you think. Most parents assume that the inner compass is something you explain to a child, like a rule you teach them. But a young child's compass isn't in their thinking, it's in their body. Long before a child can explain why something feels off, their body already knows. Their tummy tightens, their shoulders climb up towards their ears. They go quiet or get a headache or just feel heavy and small. That body signal is the first and most honest version of the compass. And our job is not to install it because it's already there. Our job is to help our child notice it and trust it instead of learning to override it. Because here's what an emotionally unsafe adult does, often without the child even realizing it's happening. They teach the child to doubt that signal. The child says what they saw or names what they felt, and the adult corrects them and corrects them again until the child starts to think, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I didn't really see that, maybe I shouldn't trust what I feel. And once a child learns to doubt their own body, they'll hand the job off to deciding what's real to whoever is loudest and most certain in the room. So one of the most protective things we can ever teach our child is almost embarrassingly simple. It's okay to listen to yourself first. I'll show you what that looks like. And it comes from a children's book I wrote called Seeds of Self-Trust. There's a little character named Milo, and a neighbor starts coming over on rainy days to tell Milo about all of her troubles. And Milo listens because listening feels like the kind thing to do. He tries to cheer her up, but nothing he does helps. And she just keeps going. And slowly, Milo notices his tummy getting tight and his shoulders getting heavy and starting to droop. Now here's the turning point, and it's the whole thing. Milo doesn't decide that the neighbor is bad. He doesn't get hard, and he doesn't get afraid. He simply listens to his body, and he gently says that he's going to rest in his room. That's it. That's the entire compass. A child who feels the heaviness, trusts that it means something, and honors it without having to hate anyone. Milo gets to stay kind and still take care of himself. And those two things were never supposed to be in competition. So here's the reflection I want to leave you sitting with. This week, I want you to start noticing the moments when your child looks to someone else to tell them what's true or how they're supposed to feel. Watch for the small hesitations, the ones where instead of saying what they think or feel, your child glances at the adult in the room first or waits to hear what they're supposed to say. Because every one of those little moments is your child handing their compass to someone else outside of them. You don't have to do anything about it yet. You just have to start seeing how often it happens and who they're handing it to. Most parents are quietly stunned by how much their child has already started to look outward for the thing that was supposed to come from inward. Now, here's the honest part, and it's the reason this work is harder than just reading your child a good book at bedtime. Most of us were never given an inner compass either. If you grew up with a parent who told you that you were too sensitive, or that what you felt wasn't real, or that you were responsible for managing their feelings, then you learn to doubt your own inner signal too. And that makes it so much harder because it's nearly impossible to confidently hand your child a compass when you were trained to ignore it yourself. You find yourself wanting to teach your child to trust their feelings while you're still second guessing your own in the next room. This isn't a flaw in you. It's just the honest shape of the cycle. And it's exactly why a book at bedtime, as much as I believe in the one I wrote, was never going to be enough on its own. The book can plant the seed in your child, but building the soil, becoming the steady, safe person who helps that seed actually grow while you're also rebuilding your own self-trust at the same time, that's the deeper work. And that's the work I do with parents. So I don't want you to leave this feeling like the deck is stacked against your child. Because here's the truth. The inner compass is not something your child either has or doesn't have. It's something that gets built inside a safe relationship over time. Every time you believe your child's feelings instead of correcting it, every time you show them that they can be kind and still take care of themselves, you are building it piece by piece. And a child who carries that compass is protected in a way that no court order and no custody schedule could ever protect them, because they carry it into every room with every person for the rest of their lives. It's the one thing that an unsafe parent can never quietly take from them. And it's the thing that you get to give. So here's what I want you to do. Don't make this about the other parent. Make it about your child's compass and whether it's being built or buried right now. That's the question that actually centers your child. And if you want help building it with someone who has both studied this and lived it, book a strategy session with me. The link is in the description. This is for the parent who wants to give their child something far more lasting than a courtroom win, which is the ability to trust themselves for life. And before you go, I want to tell you what's coming. Next week, I'm going to talk about one of the most painful things a child in this situation can be put through, which is being made to feel that they have to choose between the two people they love the most. We'll talk about the loyalty bind, how to spot it, and why it was never your child's job to carry it. Make sure you subscribe so it finds you when it's out. I'll see you then.